Hi there, everybody. I'm Juliana Fagiardini. Welcome to another Suricata webinar. Today with me, I have Lucas Shishmish, my co-host from OISF, and the Peter Manev, who will be our speaker. He's from OISF and Stamus Networks, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get started with the webinar, just a few words about OISF. This stands for Open Information Security Foundation. We are a US-based nonprofit, and it is organized to build community and to support open source security technologies like Suricata. Funding for us comes from donations from world-class security organizations committed to our mission. If you want to know more about our consortium members or become one, do visit our consortium members page. If you are here, but for some reason don't know what Suricata is, we are not just an IDS or IPS, as people usually know us for. We are an open source network threat and intelligence tool. We can generate way more than just alerts. We log protocol transactions, network flows. We have PCAP recordings, extracted files, and you will see way more than that with Peter Manev in just a few moments. With that, I pass the floor on to you, Peter. Thanks a lot for being here with us today, and I hope you folks enjoy this presentation.
Howdy, howdy. Thank you, Jules. Thank you, Lucas. You guys hear me loud and clear? Is that okay?
Yep, sure. All good.
Am I sounding all right? Okay. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's make sure this is the right screen, just to avoid any and make sure we're doing okay. All right. So, guys, please let me know if you see my screen.
I see your slides.
I am doing all right. All right. So, why are we here? What are we going to talk about? And to actually do some hands-on stuff that I'd like to share some feedback, some of my findings and how to find it. We are actually going to do a little bit. We only have 50 minutes or so, but I'm going to try to share a simple and a couple of useful cases that I think could be useful to everybody with respect to using AI specifically, or some of the publicly available AI tools out there for malware analysis of payloads by Suricata. And this is one case. This is not meant to be an exhaustive AI full-blown analysis of all the Suricata data, because it's a science on its own. Now, we will do AI malware analysis. Now, who am I? That's the sci-fi version of me. At night, I do this. I'm joking, of course, but this is, for example, an AI-generated image, which is pretty cool, pretty good, and it's pretty effortless to do. So it's rather helpful. But who am I actually? Really, I have the privilege of the pleasure to be a part of the Suricata team for 16 years, I think now. I've done a lot of public blogs, videos, and trainings. I think somebody counted them. It's over 200 of those. I'm pretty happy to be evangelizing Suricata most of the time, involved in the QA and trainings. I'm also with a colleague of mine that we met at the Suricata project, Eric. I'm part of Stamus Networks. I'm very much vested in open source. Everything I show today is open source and around Suricata. Of course, I like a lot threat hunting. That about will sum it up. Now, in Stamus Networks, as I mentioned, we're well vested in open source, and we have over 25 different GitHub projects. 7 of those are listed here, all open source, GPL. You're more welcome to check them out for yourself. I'm not going to go through one by one through all of them, but there's some that you might find useful if you're using Suricata. Now, note of caution, everything that I show here, I'm going to be using malware PCAPs publicly available, but if you're doing that at home, or if you're trying to reproduce the same setup that I have with the same pickup. Please be mindful, visiting the domains, or don't do any detonation of extracted files or similar, unless you're doing that, of course, in a sandbox environment. So what's the general agenda? What are we going to talk about? So I already covered who am I, and continue on onwards with why Suricata. I'll do a demo. Everything that I show and demo is open source. All the data is actually public, so you can actually reproduce it yourself too, if you'd like to. And I would like to share like a couple of cases where I found AI very useful, and also the caveats around that, pros and cons of everything. Everything has pros and cons, and what you should be aware of, especially with mind of a security perspective. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about what's alert payload, the alert context, and similar. And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, we will do some hands-on stuff. So why the network? Why not? Because everything happens on the network, actually. It doesn't matter if it's encrypted or you're decrypting it when you're looking at it, or if it's unencrypted. Every communication actually happens over the network in some way, shape, or form. Whether that's a good information or bad information, meaning from malicious intent and malicious communication. It's all happening there. Malware attackers use the network, of course, to exfiltrate data, to transfer tools and similar, just like everybody else is using it for normal routine. So it's quite normal to find most of the stuff that you need on the network, and to find a lot, at least, of communication logs and traces there. So state the obvious, monitoring the network is actually essential. Why am I saying that? Well, a very simple example. Every time I look at my monitoring screens at home, I am kind of always stressing out how many devices are communicating, including one of the most important devices in the house at the moment, because I have little kids, the dishwasher. So there is a lot of devices communicating on those points. You can tell me on those, as endpoints on the network medium, and you can actually look around the place where you live, in the home that you live, and things like that, and figure out that most of those things are connected, actually. So, please bear that in mind. Network is a very good demo, a very good deployment setup to have and monitor. What will I demo and why? Well, part of my daily routines are actually always look at some sort of a malware, and I have developed certain routines, whether that will be some command line full magic, and I'll just run Suricata through it to see what it will spit out in terms of, let's say, extracted files or extracted certificates or any other analysis, or just plainly just to see the communication, or whether it's actually I'll run things through more through other open source tools or other tools that actually have GUIs and things like that for more automated analysis. I do some part of that during the day, any day. And usually I'm super happy when I'm actually doing that, because I get to learn a lot. You always learn, because malware always evolves. Often during the day, not only in terms of work, but also in regular life, in personal life, you and just like me, I suppose, you can refer to AI to ask questions, or to get a better description of something, or to use it for some sort of a feedback, and that's quite normal these days. I also want to share some experience of how I found it useful, some pros and cons, as I mentioned, around that. Hopefully it'll be useful to others. And the aim is also what I actually show everybody else should be able to reproduce it. So it's not just something that happens only in a demo environment, but you should be able to reproduce it yourself too, if you'd like to. The malware that we'll look at, it's like an XLoader, which is basically a rebranding of former phonebook malware, which is kind of mainly a stealer, and is also, I have another case that is called Kongtuke, and you see actually on my previous slide, apologies, you can find more info about these on Malpedia, and here's the URL. about these types of malwares. And then Malware Bazaar also is another super cool and free a place where you can actually go in and look for malware or binaries, or they even have links from there to other sandboxes where you have publicly available PCAPs. So Kongtuki is basically it could be a malicious script injected in a perfectly legal site. So with that, let's get down to the chase. What is a Suricata alert payload? Well, Suricata, as Jules said at the beginning, among other things, it also generates alerts. It will generate any and other protocol data, anomaly logs, file extraction, and PCAPs as well. And whether or not there is an alert, those logs always will be there. Specifically, we'll be talking about alert payload. So there is configuration options in your Suricata YAML config. The defaults are pretty decent, but I took this screenshot from the URL above, which is the upcoming Suricata 8 actually, because it's filled up with a lot of goodies. And the payload is basically, that's the buffer part in the network traffic, shall we say, on a very high level, where the match is made. So that payload, that's what we call payload in the Suricata language, if you will, and the Suricata alert language, if you will, because that payload buffer is actually very important because it's usually part of the alert enabled by default, and it holds interesting information. And you can see it's a buffer. You can actually enable whether, I mean, those are all options that are set by default, but you can actually enable or disable if you want to see that payload, if you want to see it printable, how long is actually the payload, exactly the place where it matched, and similar ones. And you also have similar for WebSocket payloads and so forth. But again, this is the upcoming Suricata 8, although anything highlighted above, that's readily available in the current stable Suricata, and that's what I will show. So you can also control what's the buffer size and how much of that you would want to see. So how do you get the payload? Well, as always, read the docs, but in general, alerts are generated based on some sort of a match, some sort of a detection logic, okay? And for that, Suricata uses, it could be a mix of keywords or a mix of conditions, let's say. You can go cross flows or on the same flows. You could also use Lua scripts. Regardless, it is based on some condition. We have an alert that's being generated, some condition, some logic. When that alert can be generated via ways of different keywords, and you have here on kind of the right-hand side of my screen, this is actually a screenshot from the docs where you have the different keywords all being explained, depending on whether it's a protocol or whether it's something more specific. There's different keywords for different elements or different parts of the traffic, if you will, that you want to match on, and each of those has its own specifics. They all explain in the docs, but there are a lot. So you can get very granular on it, and Suricata is very fast and good at it. So now, all this comes on top of the different other network protocol logs, file and flow and anomaly logs that Suricata produces, regardless of the alerts. But always consult the docs. That's where I got the screenshot from. So why is this here? So depending on where the match is triggered and Suricata raises an alert, this is the place where that payload or the payload buffer will be. What exactly made Suricata trigger alert? What exactly triggered the match? Now, how does a payload look? Well, it's called payload printable, let's say, and it's available in any Suricata alert. It can vary depending on what the signature or what the alert is about. You know, in this case, it's an HTTP, that's clear text. But it gives context, right? It gives some sort of an idea where and why it matched. This is actually pretty interesting. It's from Net Support RAT. And you can see from a security perspective, it's actually, you know, the whole URL doesn't really, looks quite suspicious. First, because it's just IP directly. Second, because it's a net support manager and things like that. So depending where that happened, you actually might want to investigate a bit more. But actually, this is from an active, from a real malware, and I took the screenshots from there. So that's an example. Again, this is an HTTP example. It could be SMB. So for example, if the specific signature has triggered in some part of the SMB flow, you will have the surrounding logs that Suricata produced, but you also have the payload printable, or exactly that buffer where Suricata actually made the match. That will be here in this screenshot, the payload printable, as you wish. And it could also be it could be just plain TCP example. Here is, in these cases, these are two payloads printable from alerts that are by default available in the alerts that are, in this case, those were from two actually remote shells or reverse shells, kind of reversing. And in a lot of cases, they can hold very good information, very contextual. In a lot of cases, maybe not. So it really depends. It's not a golden bullet to solve it all, but I'm just giving you the background what it is, and let's see how it can be useful. Talking about what is alert context. Here's an example. So when you have a generated alert, that generates is due to a specific detection logic, okay? And when that alert is generated, there's some metadata and alert context around it that Suricata produces by default. As you see on the red squares here, we have, in this case, we have a very simple informational signature called PowerShell user agent usage. Yeah, very good, but in this case, it's not so good, and I'll deal with that hands-on because first of all, the HTTP host looks funky. We have a status 200, so it did happen. In the red squares, you see that the same communication between those two hosts, the same flow, created 5 more alerts. 2 files were identified. There is a flow record of all the transaction, and there's 2 HTTP logs in there. And also there is a PCAP file. So Suricata does produce actually PCAP file as well. There's something called conditional PCAP that is actually available in Suricata, which actually holds the stream, the flow where that alert was generated. So Suricata can do that as well out of the box by default. Very, very helpful. And again, here we have a payload printable. And this payload printable is also a little bit revealing that in a way, in a case that, well, it says desktop dash some string, then a key and similar things like that. You wouldn't exactly expect to see that flying around in clear text out of your organization to a host that you don't know of with that specific payload, or to a host that looks like that. So here's a little bit of a context. So now this also you can happen to have the response body inside the alert. So that's also extra context. And when you see something like that, it's obvious that, okay, this is not a normal looking HTTP response body, okay? So that doesn't look like it has like some sort of a script or parts in there. Now, in where was I? So with that, you also have to understand what happened before the alert and what happened after. So Suricata has all that data. It has the data in there. So now that we have the basics in check, and we know that Suricata correlates logs by default, let's dive in to some of the tools that we'll use and exactly what I'm going to show you hands-on. Often enough, as I said, daily, part of my routines can include running Suricata, running malware through Suricata or Suricata-based tools. That, in this case, I'm going to go with the Clear and Direct Community Edition, which is an open source tool. Everything I show is actually an open source tool. This is based on, this is an upgrade of Selx. It also includes Evebox, which is also, Evebox itself is also supported by one of our teammates at Suricata, a very useful tool. Now, you can actually reproduce anything here like that. I'm just giving you the background of how you can do it with 3 commands. This is exactly what I did. Anybody can do it. Just copy paste those and you'll be up and running on any Linux OS that has Docker as well. I think this information will be shared and the slides will be shared a little bit later. And then what I did is just I read that PCAP. That's exactly it. Open source tools. I read everything in there. I have all my tools. I have my Kibana dashboards. I have my hunting queries. I have my Gestamo threat hunting interface. I have eBox. All those things are there. I'm ready to go if I want to do a little bit of a better dive of what's going on. So, where does the AI part come in? Well, many AI tools exist. So let's get some things fleshed out because just as a very basic point. Many AI tools exist. There's a lot of public ones. There's some private ones. There's different subscription levels. You could actually also, the different subscription levels actually could have an effect on the results. You can have different results. A better subscription level or a better, let's say, paid version might give you better results depending on exactly what you want to do with it. In this case, what I'm using, I'll be using ChatGPT and Gemini. Again, this is the freely available ones, because when I did that, I just wanted to share a small piece, at least out of one of my daily routines that I took my views to everybody. And of course, there are some pros and cons, as with everything, when using the AI tools and when using traditional non-AI tools and similar and vice versa. Now, let's go ahead and do some hands-on. So, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and actually log in here. This is the open source Clear India community. I like it a lot because I hunt with it a lot. So here, this is the dashboard of the hunting interface. I have two cases, actually, two pickups. Exactly the commands that I showed you before. If I run two pickups, I have two cases. So I can actually zoom on one case, review it, and then if I want to zoom on the other case and then review it, or I can just have a few cases and just see if there's any similarities between them. Now let's go ahead and see what we can do with some infused analysis. So first of all, this is all the alert information broken down in metadata that Suricata produces. So you have the exact same information whether you're using Elastic, OpenSearch, or Splunk, or Google Chronicle, whatever tool you're using. It's JSON suddenly produced by Suricata. Suricata has it already. Cutting to the chase, what caught attention to me and I wanted to share is this hunting signature here. Again, this is from the XLoader infection traffic. And as I was reviewing it, shall we say, okay, let's try to zoom in directly on that. So now I have only these alerts. I'm going over to the detection method or signatures. And what made an impression on me, pardon me, is these obfuscator usage hunting signatures and alerts in this case. So as I was reviewing things, and one thing made an impression. Okay, it's not very often I see that, but it's next level infection traffic. It's kind of pretty spread around there. I got the PCAPs from malware traffic analysis. They're in the slide at the end. And when I go to review them, I noticed something kind of interesting. So again, here's the alert. This is exactly all. This is from the raw JSON log that Suricata produces. So Suricata has all that contextual information metadata in there. But as I was reviewing it, and here in this case, we have a file. The SHA is here. Or this comes from the HTTP connection itself, the URL. But as I was reviewing it, I have my payload printable here. Okay, all right, this happened in clear text. I don't know if it really happened in clear text or the environment was just decrypted and we were able to catch there. It's a public PCAP. I just got it from there. And I was reviewing the payload printable. In this case, we had quite a big one. All right, so it seems like the page is here. Seems like this may be Spanish of some sort, and quite a long payload. And as I mentioned, you know, some of these malwares, of course, use like perfectly legit sites, but like injected scripts in there. Also, what I was looking at was the response body. So in this case, we had if I scroll down, this is a pretty massive response body, but something made an impression at the bottom of it, at the bottom here of it. I had something like a script. That's what made an impression on me. And if I zoom in on that, here is my script. Okay. So, and this is a funky one, right? So if I look at it, there's a bunch of interesting string characters. You see var, you see a bunch of separated strings like that. That it seems there's kind of some sort of obfuscation, right? So I'm not super well versed with reversing or with, I'm not like some sort of a advanced guru developer. I can figure it out in 5 minutes. And I'm looking down, I was wondering, okay, so what is it? And you know, because this is public PCAP, I'm just reviewing information is pretty available, pretty shareable and available on the public medium. I was like, well, I can try to figure out by myself, but let me ask something else, see if you could figure it out for me and what the results will be. And that's what I did. And I'll tell you my story. I took that and I said, well, all right, this looks like a script, or this looks like something. I don't know what it is, but I have the full part of it. And I wanted to understand a bit more what is it and why it does. Now, one of the reasons for me wanting to understand what is and why it does things is to actually to be able to, as soon as you find something interesting, of course, is to dive in some malware, interesting malware, I mean, is to dive in and extract certain information or IOCs, let's say. If there's a site, if there's a link, if the TLS or a certificate or whatever that is, file hash, it's that information is interesting to see if that's known, unknown, where it's seen, and all that stuff. So I was looking at it and I said, okay, I just copy pasted it, and I said, hey, ChatGPT, there it is. And this is what I just asked ChatGPT, and I said, display the deobfuscated the deobfuscated script. Now it took me a few questions to get it to do exactly what I wanted it to do. I just wanted to display the script and be like, is it a script first of all, and then display it. What is it? And ChatGPT answered and said, that's it. That's the script. And it did a pretty good analysis. You know, the script was heavily obfuscated using string manipulations and coding. Maybe I can zoom in a bit more. And, you know, it sets down. Then it says it has a variable u, and that reverse and URL encoded information, and that's the information that I'm after. You know, I wanted to actually find out, is there's something else in there I can hang on what it is, and the purpose of it. And as I was actually coming onto that information here, which comes directly from the script that ChatGPT actually deobfuscated and printed out for me. I was looking at that URL, and then as I was reading it, I said, okay, well, it's saying that there is a reverse URL decoded format, but then that I came back to the payload and I saw that this thing here actually looks like exactly the HTTP one, but reversed. Okay, I didn't notice it at the beginning, at first. You know, it took ChatGPT. I was like, okay, yeah, that really looks like it. All right, I didn't see it before, and then I was like, okay, how is that calculated? So we went back to the actual payload, and I'm like, okay, we have this, and ChatGPT said it reverted it, and it said that this is the URL. And then I was like, okay, well, let me see if that domain is actually present in VirusTotal, because that's what usually malware does. And when I went, okay, this one is actually present in there. I was like, good. So maybe that's an artifact. All right. So I would have never been able to come down to here if I didn't actually ask ChatGPT to give me that analysis and to tell me what the script is doing and all that stuff. It's obviously doing something bad and unwanted, but I wanted to learn more. What is it? And that was really, really easily available with a click. So that was awesome. So then I paid a bit more attention to all the parts, and I figured out and I said, well, if that's a reverse one, I can actually reverse it myself, but it doesn't look right here. It doesn't look correct. Because we have CyberChef, so I went to CyberChef basically, and I said, here's the string. I want to show what do we say? What do we say? We want to reverse it, okay? I want to reverse that so it more looks like an encoded URL. And then now I want to URL decoded, okay? And that gave me this HTTPS or this URL. However, that's different than this one here, okay? They differ, they're not the same. So CyberChef, which is also open source, a very famous tool for string manipulations and similar, actually gave me a different result than ChatGPT. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, I think there is an error. The URL is HTML escaped. And yeah, absolutely, right. And then it did give me the same result and an explanation. So I was like, okay. And then he gave a very good explanation. It's obfuscation and encoding. Do not visit the URL. Don't do that. So all that information was very, very useful. But I was still, this was going fly, and this actually that we reversed it, fly Nikian. That's the VirusTotal, and the one that we did in the reverse is actually not the same name. Here is me doing it manually. And I said, okay, I copy pasted the same script. I mean, very helpful so far. I went to Gemini and I said, Gemini, what is this? Give me the deobfuscated script. So that's what it is. Display the deobfuscated script. Gemini gave me a more script-wise a better view, and it said, okay, this is the script. Right on top was, this reverse string. And again, it gave me a much bigger part of the script. And so it gave me a different view. So ChatGPT said, this is the deobfuscated script. But anyway, at this point, I was zeroed in on this reverse string. I'm like, okay, so what is this? If this is an artifact, if this is an IOC, or, I'd like to know which one it is, or am I correct or am I wrong? Because I'm pretty sure CyberChef here was right. And by the way, I asked Gemini to decode it, and it pretty much, I think, if I'm not mistaken, gave me the same result as ChatGPT. So anyway, I'm using just the free and public versions. Probably your results may vary. So what was what was interesting is that as I was doing that, I did it by mistake twice. The following day too, and in this case, as you can see, the URL from the first case, it actually gave me a little bit of a more different result. So you see one script here, and you see the other script, the other return here. right? So, and in one case, Gemini did it, but left the script reversed, and with the exact same question, but it was just the day later. Again, I did it by mistake. Actually, Gemini returned me this script and was like, okay, that's actually different, but it's still not exactly as the reverse one from CyberChef. So I went to VirusTotal again, and I pressed this thing, and I said, let's see if this is up and running or available, what it is. And sure enough, it says, that is there, that is DGA, not encountered. And then I went and actually also visited this one on VirusTotal, of course, as previously as before. And, the result was actually similar. It says it was created 1 month ago and similar stuff. But the point here was that I was actually trying to extract some sort of an IOC and to see which one is it. And again, I got stuck on this specific one. So now the information here, it's super, super, super useful because I wouldn't have been able to come up with that on my own. Okay, so or probably I need to spend quite substantial amount of time to get it to here. Just because I'm not by trade a reverse engineer. But so that's where, ChatGPT and Gemini and AI, they were super useful. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then you go in and actually you see if there's any IOCs that you can actually extract from there. But as I was extracting IOCs, I just saw that, well, in this case, it actually gave me different results, and different AI tools gave me different results. And I suspect with different levels of subscription or similar, you also have different results, probably better with better subscription levels. So one of the conclusions here is like, actually, oh yeah, it's very useful. Please be careful how you use it, because if you base your IOCs, for example, on that, you also have to have a little bit of security, let's say, background to be able to actually confirm that this is the correct IOC you're giving. Otherwise, it will give you a lot of false positives later on, just to be on the safe side. And in my case, actually, again, I use ChatGPT, I use Gemini, and I actually manually reversed the string already available in here. Now, is this good or is this bad? Everything here is actually good. Again, I would have never been able to see what the script do and actually be able to study it further and analyze it if it was not for the AI part of it. And I use that very often. Like, what is it? Just to give me a general idea. But now after this, like, actually after this experience, you have to have in mind that there's different subscription levels, there's different accuracy information, and sometimes if you ask the same question twice, 2 times in a row, different things might happen. So use it with caution. Security perspective is good. One other thing that I learned the hard way as well was actually you have to know how to ask, or you have to at least train and experience, to state the obvious. Probably most of you know that, but you have to know how to ask the right question to get the right result. In my case, it took me a few iterations to a few questions just to say, yeah, okay, I just want to see the script. I don't want the analysis. I know there's something bad. I was convinced of that. It's a known malware extract. I just wanted to see, okay, what does the script do? What's in there? So it took me a few iterations, but the explanation was very good. I could have not come up with those explanations or those descriptions on my own. I could have not come up with that script on my own. So definitely useful. And where am I trying to go here is like, yeah. So if you ask it, what does this script do below? For example, this is another payload of Suricata that I think I found. Let me see if I can get it in Was it here that I found it or in the other pcap? Shall we see that quickly? No, it was not here. It was in the other pcap, this guy. All right, and we were having what? Windows PowerShell user agent. That signature, that detection actually happens quite regularly in all regular Office corporate environments, shall we say, Windows environments, quite often, and it's could be very verbose, and often enough people don't even look at it. However, it's good to have the context in mind, because yes, it's a Windows PowerShell user agent, and that happens very often. However, where it's going, how it's going there, what is it doing, that's the context that is actually important. And in this case, it was like, yeah, this response body that was, and here you even have a for a loop at the end. This was actually super interesting, and that's the script that I asked ChatGPT, what does the script below do? I assume it's a script, because sometimes it could be just an export and not full extract and not full script, and you never know. And then it gave quite a good description. I mean, you could really copy paste this and put it into your incident response. It was actually pretty decent. I liked it a lot. And again, as I said, I went through a few iterations. What is the result of the script? So first I asked, what did I say? What does the script do? Very good explanation. What is the result of the script? And then it gave me that explanation and even more analysis. And then actually at the end is even asked me even more. To fully determine its intent, I'd need to decode, and would you like me to continue on also? And I said yes, and we went for a session, and went back and forth. And at the end, I just I tried to ask it the question different way. You know, do full analysis and deobfuscation, display the resulting of the deobfuscated script, and then at the end, simply this does the job for it to display the deobfuscated script. And actually, you can see that, of course, right away, you can see that it's basically replacing txt with a bin, which is an executable. So yeah, obviously it's doing it. The malware is doing its job, but it was actually quite interesting to see the structure of the script and to understand a bit more, especially with public data. So basically, that's it. A very small and simple use case, but two very small and simple use cases, but actually that helped me a lot in some of my daily routines when I actually look at Suricata alerts all the time. And again, this is all free and open source or free public information as in terms of PCAPs and ChatGPT and Gemini. They're free. There are other free AIs. This is some of the AI tools that I use. There's also different subscription levels. The results may vary, but it gave good enough results for me that I wasn't able to have before. I just had to spend the extra step with network security in mind as a background to double check the IOCs and confirm if that was the right one or not the right one, if the reversing was done correctly. It threw me off a little bit at the end that it gave me a little bit of the two systems gave me a little bit of a different result. So in one case, the deobfuscated script with ChatGPT was this, in the other one was much bigger than Gemini. That doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just depends, because I asked it a little bit later the question again, and it gave me a similar but with a little of variation answer, especially in terms of the URL here, as you can see. So and he might even give you better result or different result, let's say 6 months from now, because the things are constantly, let's say, improving or similar. So this is what I had in mind. This is what I wanted to share. Just a useful case. I find it useful in my daily routines. You just have to be careful how to use it. And that's it. I will open it now for actually for questions, if that's all right, of course.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter, for such a great talk.
No problem. Thank you.
And we are open for questions. We got a comment from Daniel that he also finds it very interesting for LLMs to be part of the game already, and that it helps with basically this general the obfuscation and code insights as well. So Cole is asking about Suricata 8 and when it might be coming out.
When will it coming out? When is it coming out, Jules?
We do know that the beta version should be out in April. This is our roadmap, and we will be making sure to make a lot of noise when we have that, because we want you folks to test it. Because if you don't test it and you don't tell us what is wrong and what doesn't work as expected, we will be releasing Suricata 8 and you will say later, oh, but we didn't like it like this. We cannot use it because this or that. And we won't be able to do anything, because then it will be official. So please, around April or May, do check Suricata 8, run it, test it, and tell us, hey, you cannot do it like this. It's breaking and it cannot break like that. So that's it. Stay tuned.
Feedback is much appreciated for sure. Yeah.
Follow up on Jules. So beta is in April/May. That's when the feature freeze will happen, but we can still iterate on small issues here and there. And the plan is to have the official release somewhere in the fall. So that's on the roadmap so far for now.
So you should have it this year before Suricon, right?
I would expect so. Yes, absolutely. Because we'll be doing trainings in Suricon with Suricata 8. So we have to have it. That's for sure. And by the way, not to jump a little bit ahead, but like if there will be a Jules, if I'm not mistaken, there will be series of webinars and so on and so forth, so that we create as part of that noise, right, for Suricata 8. So stay tuned. Usually we did similar actually last year for Suricata, for the latest Suricata and all that. So all those webinars, upcoming ones after Suricata 8 is released, will hold a little gems of how useful it is, what's the new things, and how can they be useful to you, for sure.
Yep, that's the plan. I hope we succeed with that. More questions, folks? I think people need coffee.
Could be
it's
quite
almost
possible.
Friday. So if there are no more questions, once again, thanks, Peter. It is always cool to see such use cases of AI. I think it makes way more sense when you have something like that. It's more contained than trying to have, like, say, you have Suricata and tell AI to try to figure out what's going on. That's too much, but
yeah, definitely. There's different levels of usage, but again, the way it did the explanation and the analysis and the deobfuscation, and it's free actually, that was pretty good. That was pretty awesome. Because often enough you have to explain that, or explain it, at least summarize it to some people that might not be technical, and it was very good. Yes, I totally agree.
Okay. Do you mind if I share my screen for us to wrap up the webinar?
Oh, no, sorry. I need to stop mine, right? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah, there you go. You should be good now.
Okay, so back. So before we finish this very cool webinar, just wanted to invite you all to join our community in case you are not there yet. you have our forum where we post about releases, we post about our webinars where you can ask questions, find answers that might be useful for you. There's the Discord where we hang out. Sometimes people also ask questions there. It's harder for us to keep track of those, but it happens. We also announce anything there. Sometimes we will just share memes or whatever. We will be having Suricon this year again. As we've mentioned, it will be in Montreal. If you want to sponsor, please do. We cannot make this huge conference happen without sponsorship. The call for talks should be open still this month. And before that happens, you can always check suricon.net and find more than 10 years of content available in our archives. Stay tuned, because next month we have our outreachy webinar with our current intern, Alicia Kaki. She's doing an amazing work with improving our role language. It will be on March 13th. And if you also have ideas for a webinar, if you missed something that we should be talking in webinars, we have a form for you to submit a talk idea. It could be for you to talk. It could be just for us to think about finding a speaker who could cover that topic. Don't hesitate to share that with us. We welcome those very much, and we love to hear from the community. So please do that. And that would be all for us. Any final words before we wrap this up?
That's from me. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you all, people.
Thank you very much.
See you again in March. We will also be meeting the team in person in the first week of March. If you are around Amsterdam, we'll try to organize a meetup. Maybe that would be cool. An informal moment, of course. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Lucas, for being my co-host. It's always a pleasure being with you guys. And I think that's it. I think we have a successful webinar once more. Awesome.
See you guys later. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
See you all. Bye-bye. Oh, wait. Yes, the recording will be shared. It will be on our YouTube channel and our webpage soon. If not this week, the next. All right. Now we are good. Okay, thank you all.
Can
Yeah.
Can you stop the recording?
And oh, I cannot. You cannot do it. Do we have a problem?
Maybe
I can. All right. It's stopped.